Hey, everybody. I'll give everyone a minute to join. Happy Wednesday. Had to think about that for a second. Can you all hear me okay? Feel free to drop in the chat and say hello. I see some people joining. Awesome. Thanks, Greg and Lisa and Giovanna. Cool. While everyone's joining, I always like to ask where everybody's tuning in from. Right now, I'm over in the San Francisco Bay Area. Oh, fun. Oh, wow, Nikki, Vancouver, LA, Minneapolis, San Diego, Toronto. We got a couple Canadians here. Orlando, Sacramento, Pennsylvania. Very cool. It's always awesome to see where everybody's tuning in from. And while we still give everyone a minute to join, I just want to remind you all that this will be recorded and sent to you. So if you have other people you want to share this with later, or if you're taking notes and worried about that, just know that this will be recorded and you will get that email within 24 hours with the recording of this webinar. And while we're giving everyone one more minute, I do have a little pop-up question here. Oh, thanks, Lisa. My camera. It's really about the lighting. But here, I am curious to know how many of you are currently, or how you are currently scaling influencer marketing for your brand, if you're using any of these different tools. So are you doing it internally? Are you using a platform? Are you outsourcing to an agency? Or using a database? So looks like we have a few different ones. Hiring internal influencer marketers seems to be the most popular answer. Outsourcing to an agency, influencer database. Cool. Yeah, no, that's helpful to know. As you know, the topic of today's webinar is scaling your influencer marketing for hundreds of collabs. So I have been in this space for for a long time, and I feel like this is always a hot topic. Is I can do influencer marketing on a small scale, but how do you really scale it to hundreds and if not thousands, of creators? So that's what we're going to be covering today: is how to structure it so that you can scale to that many creators, but also when you're investing it at the point where you're doing such a large amount of collabs, how you can really measure that ROI and how you can make the most of the content that you're generating and as you create that content engine for your brand. So really excited to jump into that today. So with that, I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. So first of all, we do these webinars every month. So I notice a few names in there that look familiar. So if it's your second or third time, or if you're a repeat consumer of our webinars, welcome back. And then if you're new, and you enjoy this webinar, just know that we do have them monthly. We really focus on the social marketing space in general, and try to keep all of our audience up to date on all things social influencer and social marketing, especially skewing toward Instagram and TikTok. But with that, a little bit about myself. I've been in the influencer marketing space for the last 10 years. My very first job out of college was at an agency running influencer campaigns back in 2011. So I've really seen the journey of how it's changed in the last over 10 years. But I think one thing that has remained constant is that I kept just finding that micro influencers were really getting the most bang for the buck for the brands that we were working with. On the flip side, I was actually a micro influencer myself, so I was on a lot of the different platforms as a micro influencer, and I just couldn't find a platform that really helped to scale specifically micros in a systematic way. So that's why I created Statusphere, to essentially solve my own problem that my brands were having, and that I was also having as a micro influencer. So I really love this space. I talk about it all the time. If you are looking to get to know me, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I see our producer Sam popped up the follow me on LinkedIn button there. So I post tons of content and stay up to date on that. So feel free to follow me there if you want to stay up to date, or connect with me and let me know you saw me on the webinar. Always love connecting with other marketers. But yeah, Statusphere, we focus on scaling micro influencer marketing in a fraction of the time. The big problem that I was solving for myself and that we now solve for other marketers is that it's hard to get enough creators. It's really not scalable or streamlined. It can be hard to prove ROI. And then overall, there's not always an easy path to paid ads. So with Statusphere, we take all that time spent doing all those things and we make it super streamlined and simple. guaranteed rights ready content that you can use across your whole funnel. You get performance experts on our team that can help you make the most of all that content. We do the fulfillment as well to the creators, so we take all that headache off your plate, and then we also give you that reporting built for micro influencer campaigns. So if you are interested in chatting with us, our team's always here. We'll let you know if we're a fit for what your goals are, and or if we're not, we'll give you some resources of where else you should go to get your needs met. But we have worked with tons of brands. We actually just hit 75,000 brand creator matches, which is really exciting accomplishment for our team. And we've worked with over 400 brands in a variety of different spaces. So we've seen a lot of influencer campaigns. We've worked with a lot of influencers and a lot of brands. So we're always excited to share those learnings with you all. So with that, I'll jump into what we're going to cover today. So we're going to cover building a content engine for your brand. So building really this engine that can just help you always on creating content that you can use throughout your marketing funnel. How you can maximize your influencer content for reach and scalability, how your content engine supports social SEO. So if you've been on a few of my webinars recently, you'll notice that topics come up a lot because it's kind of a newer frontier of the concept of helping your brand rank in social search. How to get the most mileage out of your influencer content, and then examples of those effective content engines in action. So, I really think the best way to learn is from seeing how other brands are doing it. And since we work with so many, we have some really great examples. And as I kick things off, I will remind you one more time, because it's always a question, this will be recorded and sent out afterwards, so you can share it as well or refer back. So first, building a content engine. So what is a content engine? So a content engine is a system that generates marketing content at scale. I've noticed some brands starting to use this term a little bit more as content has become such an integral part of a marketing channel. Every single marketing channel needs content. So if you don't have a way to produce enough content for all of those channels, it's really hard to be effective and successful. So the goal is to create a constant stream of content where you have the rights to repurpose and use it across multiple channels. It eliminates bottlenecks in the burden of creating content in-house. Content creation, I don't have to tell you all, if you're all marketers, it's very time consuming, tedious, and especially with the amount of content that you have to create, you almost need a whole team if you're going to create it in-house. And then you don't want to wait around for content, let alone the right type. So it's really about getting a ton of content so that you have a bunch to choose from, right? And you can use throughout your marketing mix. So you can see in these little graphics here on the right, some of the ways that you can use your content. You're using content on your website, you're using it in your email marketing, you're using it on organic social, you're using it to reshare on social SEO. So you get the concept of ranking when people search for key terms on TikTok and Instagram. You want your product to come up. You obviously need content for paid ads, and you need to be able to understand how to optimize over time the content that you're doing. So continuing on what is a content engine, the real big key here is to get quality, you need quantity. You need to cast a really wide net and have consistent posts so that you can learn what works and what doesn't work. And because not all content is going to work for every single channel, right? So you just want to have a consistent amount of quality content coming out. And there's going to be a variability of that, right? So maximizing the ROI equals more content, more distribution, and more reach. So if you apply the B2B principle of content is king and distribution is queen to B2C, I think that's such a great quote. Content, you can have all the content in the world, but without distribution, you don't have, you're not going to reach your customers. And vice versa is true too. You can have all the distribution in the world, but if you don't have the right content to put on those channels, what's going to happen? So they're both equally important, right? And my background I've worked in the influencer space and in content marketing forever. And if you're familiar with inbound and just SEO and ranking on traditional SEO, like Google and just those search engines, you know that you have to create a bunch of blog posts. So a blog post can be used in email, it can use in an infographic, you can use it in a video, you can use it in a LinkedIn post. That's the B2B version, right? So influencer posts are similar to that. They can be used in ads, in landing pages, on organic posts, all of those different places, as long as you're getting those ad rights with it, which you want to make sure that you are with those creators. So A content engine feeds your content strategy, but it's not a replacement for it. So your content engine needs to be always on. It needs to be scalable. So you need to be able to scale it up as you need to. Otherwise, if you don't have enough content, it's not actually helping you reach those goals. It needs to be self-sustaining, so not a ton of oversight, so you can have a lot of high leverage with it. Valuable to both brands and the consumers, and measurable. So here are some stats that I thought were really interesting to share of why brands need to invest in having a content engine. So only 49% of B2C marketers claim to have content for each level of the buyer's journey. So when you're really thinking of, the awareness stage, consideration, all the way to actual purchase, only 49% of marketers feel like they actually have enough content for that full journey. TikTok recommends that brands publish between 1 to 4 times per day. Um, that's insane if you were going to create all that content in-house, but that is TikTok's recommendation for best results on TikTok, is to post that many times. So you're looking at a minimum of once a day. Even if you're just looking at weekdays, that's 5 pieces of content per week, right? So if you don't have a systematic way to create content, you're not going to hit those goals. On Instagram, 74% of consumers think that 1 to 2 posts per day is just right for brands. So that's another interesting stat by a study done by Sprout Social. And I think when we think about posts on Instagram, you do have stories, you do have feed, you do have reels. So you have a lot of different types of content, but really planning it out so that you're always in front of them, right? Because it takes so many touches to actually convert someone to a sale that you need to always, be there reminding you of their brand. And then making more meaningful touch points that drive action. So conventional wisdom says it takes 7 to 10 touch points to drive an action. So just like what I was saying before, they got to see it 7 times before they're actually driving to that next action. So you need to have lots of different touch points with content through that funnel. And then research from Google says that the number can be anywhere between 20 to 500 depending on your industry. So that's 20 to 500 touch points. So like a really big purchase, probably going to be a lot more touch points in terms of on that higher end, where maybe a easier, more impulse purchase might be on that 7 to 20 touch points, right? And then beat content burnout and overload in-house. So 66% of B2C marketers are tasked with doing more with the same resources. I think we all know that everyone's, trying to get the most out of, a small team, especially on the marketing team. And like any ways that you can create systems that create and generate content is just going to save you a ton of time and do more with less. And then why influencers should be the foundation for your content engine. So there's a few different ways you can have a content engine. You can take and actually hire a whole team in-house and create tons of content, right? You can have like a video editor and like an idea person and a strategy person, and you can have tons of content creators and even like they can cast people and they can do all that. Unfortunately, most brands do not have the luxury of creating an entire production company in-house to create hundreds and thousands of pieces of content. So what's a better solution? And the solution that we're going to talk about how to structure today is using influencers to be part of that content engine. So first, it's making sure you're hitting a quantity where you're actually getting enough content where some of it is usable throughout the different pieces of your funnel. Quality, so you need authenticity, finding influencers and creators that like actually understand your audience's need. They have the same need and that people can relate to. And then the third key is optimization. So influencers can, boost performance across all distribution channels, but you really want to like learn what type of content works and what doesn't, and then change your brief and your direction over time so that you get more and more of the content that works for your brand. And then this stat here, so 55% of Gen Z and 44% of millennials say influencer recommendations are one of the most critical factors in their purchasing decisions. And I know I'm in this space, but I mean, I see it all the time at the store, right? Like you're inside of Walmart, Sephora, Ulta, you're like searching a brand on TikTok to see what people are saying about it and what creators and influencers are saying about it, because you just trust them more, and it helps you give you that social proof, right? And then measurable and actionable outcomes from influencer content. So I think a misconception is that, okay, it's so hard to track the ROI and how I can get, what I'm doing with influencers. Really, there's so much value in so different ways. You just need to understand how to track and measure it, right? So you can see some of these little tiles here on here, like you have the ROI from the brand awareness, the social proof, the social SEO, the return on ad spend. We'll talk about a little bit later how influencer generated content actually produces better results than studio produced content. So, if you know how to use the content right and your influencer relationships right, you can see incredible ROI, and you can actually quantify that ROI. And you can reach multiple customers across multiple channels, boost the visibility, and share voice long term versus your competitors. Optimize the performance of your entire marketing funnel with that content, and then build loyalty and brand awareness amongst your audience. And we'll dive into all these a little bit deeper shortly. So, why you should leverage influencer content with multiple channels. So, in terms of influencer marketing and short form video, it produced the highest ROI of all marketing tactics right now. So HubSpot did a study, and it's not very surprising when you think about probably your own consumer habits, but short form video has the highest ROI, especially when you think about because of all the ways it can be used. Now there's so many platforms. I mean, you have Instagram, you have TikTok, you have YouTube Shorts, you have all these places where people want to consume this bite-sized video content. On your website, they want to consume it. In emails, they want to consume it. So when you think of the return on investment of getting a piece of video content generated, it is immense if you're using it across all your channels, right? It saves you a ton of time. So outreach and in-house outsourcing content rights management, like once you do it once, you can use it across all of the different pieces. And then tactics like allow listing instantly stretch your budget. So something that we tell our brands all the time, if you're looking to really get the most out of the content that creators produce, is by partnering with them to either allow list or it's also called whitelist their content, which is the concept of actually running an ad with their name at the top. So you can see here, you see how the content gets pulled in, and then it's her content right in there, and you can actually use her audience to target as with it. So it's a very great way. They do it on TikTok as well, called Spark Ads, where you can actually allow list the content, and it shows her handle at the top, but you can actually click over to the brand's website. So with an efficient content engine, you don't need to, revise and repurpose. You can you're just constantly having more. And then I always like to bring up the reminder that the buyer's journey is not linear. We always love to see that buyer's journey funnel and it looks like it's a straight line, but realistically people are going up and down all throughout the funnel, all over the place. And it more realistically looks like this, where at that starting flag at the bottom left, they have a need of I ran out of shampoo and I want to purchase a new shampoo. Then they are should I get a new one? I think I saw someone post about it on Instagram. I researched some different products because I want maybe a more healthy version of one or a more eco-friendly version of one. I might get a little bit overwhelmed. Then I see another TikTok or I see an ad, and then I kind of go back. Then I sign up for their email list. I don't purchase yet. I wait, and then I get an email. Then I see my favorite creator post about them, and then I'm like, okay, finally, I'm gonna go actually buy this product. And my friend says they love it. So it's not a linear path anymore. It's really kind of goes all over the place. And I think that the part also to note here is a lot of it you don't see and you can't really track. It's word of mouth, especially now that we don't have the cookie tracking anymore in the post iOS update. It's challenging, right? So overall, influencer marketing and working with creators is just a really great way to add more of those touch points in there, while also getting that content that you can put through that whole funnel as people are bouncing around, deciding when they're making the purchase. So just a little more data around this is that as consumers are bouncing between more platforms to find what brands they want. So you can see here Google, Amazon, TikTok, Instagram, Walmart, they're going to blogs, they're going to YouTube. They're not going to one place. So you may actually see them click from some YouTube video and then purchase, but they might have already looked at 10 TikToks as well. Or you might see them click from TikTok, but they already looked at, some Instagram reels, or they already went on Amazon and read some reviews, right? So you have to really put yourself in their shoes and think about how you're actually searching for products, right? It's not just a one-stop shop. You're normally looking at multiple different places. So this chart here shows younger consumers are more likely to be discovering new brands, especially on social media. So you can see the all global consumers dot is the teal dot, and then the 18 to 44 age range is the purple dot. And you can see how it's much higher for each of the different segments here, but especially higher for social media. And then influencer content overlaps between owned, paid, and organic channels. Your content engine reaches buyers no matter where they're searching, because if you get that piece of content and you're repurposing across all your channels, you're gonna hit that audience. And both paid and organic product discovery is becoming more social centric. So in terms of getting that most out of your content, so I really like this slide right here because it shows like this one piece of content helps this brand rank in social SEO. So now it's coming up when people type in like shampoo bar reviews, best shampoo. They also can use in their newsletter and say like, look at this amazing piece of content that this creator created, and went and got tons of views and engagement, and they can put that in their newsletter. They can also put it on their product page to help people convert, right? The people lower in the funnel. So maybe people are on the edge and then they see this video on their website and they're like, oh, you know what? I do want to purchase this. This pushed me over the edge because this person reminds me of me and she's a real person talking about the product. And then you can also use it more at that top mid of the funnel with Spark ads, sponsored posts, and then just posting organically on your social. So this one piece of content generated can be used in all of these different ways, right? And you should be thinking about that as you're building your content strategy and thinking about how to make the most of your content. Are you using it across all of the channels that you can be using it across, right? And then in terms of optimizing your funnel too. So the human element of influencers really strengthens the funnel in terms of that trust building. So 62% of consumers want to see videos with real people before making a purchase. UGC on site can lift 91% lift in conversion. So that was a really powerful study of like looking at a landing page of a product and it having no UGC versus having UGC on it. And I will say like just my own experience too. I mean, who are you going to trust more? A brand that you don't see any real people using the product and just a stock photo on a white background, or a bunch of real people talking about their experiences, right? And then we talked about that short form video, how that's the way people want to learn about products. So you paired the two of those together and it's really a match made in heaven. Creator ads on Instagram see a 15% higher return on ad spend versus non-creators. So if you're looking for ways to lower your customer acquisition costs, this is actually Meta came out saying that's like the number one way to lower your customer acquisition cost in ads is by using creator content. So if you're not doing that already, that should also be a huge part of as you build out your content engine, what you're looking to use the content on. And then on TikTok, they're called those Spark ads that I was talking about, where you use creator content in ads. Spark ads outperform non-creator ads on both conversions and CPM basis as well. So, so it's very consistent across all platforms that people want to see real people posting about products and talking about products. So you can increase awareness, credibility, and customer loyalty at the same time as well. So influencers want to promote the brands that they love. So what's really great is the authenticity is there. A good creator does not want to post about something that they don't truly believe in, right? So 79% of influencers want to build long-term partnerships. Like they want to create some piece of content and they want to actually create more with you over time. So they're incentivized to do a good job with it. Authenticity is the most important factor when learning about a brand on social media. So it's kind of that concept of when you search for a brand and there's no one posting about it, you're like, is this brand even real? Like, I don't know if it's like, I really would never buy a brand if I don't see at least some reviews or someone talking about it, right? But then what's really great is once you get this going, there's a snowball effect. So influencer content generates organic content as well. So we've seen this before where our brands that are doing long-term, always-on campaigns will finally get, when you're doing mass amounts of people posting on TikTok, it's only a matter of time before one really goes viral. And then you'll see a bunch of more people creating more content because they saw that go viral and they want to try it and do their own videos as well. So it's like these brands that you see that are performing so well on platforms like TikTok and on Reels, this is a long-term investment. They're not coming in and saying, oh, I'm going to just do influencers and content for a couple months. Like I guarantee you that those brands, if you look back, have been on there at least 6 months, if not multiple years before they've hit this snowball effect and really getting the most out of that. So now how do you optimize your content engine for reach and scale? So first is those micro influencers. Like I said at the beginning of the session, I've worked with macros and micros, and the micros, just you get more bang for your buck because you can get a lot more of them posting. Also, content can be very subjective, so when you're working with micros, it's really great because you can cast a wide net and get all sorts of content you didn't even imagine. Some you'll love, some you'll be like, oh, I don't know if that's going to be right for me, but the big part is that you're going to be able to see the variability and then optimize over time, right? Also, you can get organic reach if you have them not only creating content for you, but posting it on their channels, right? Because TikTok says follower count doesn't even determine engagement or trending content at all. There's a stat that's like 80% of viral TikToks are just from non-verified accounts, just normal people, right? Which is so powerful as to why micros are such a great investment for brands, if you're trying to figure out where to get the most bang for your buck. And then the scalability of it too. So that social proof, like you can have one celebrity posting, or you can have hundreds of micros posting. I feel like I would much more trust a brand if I saw 100 people posting versus one celebrity posting, right? For a handful of reasons. And then in terms of a few other tactics around this, so a majority of viral product posts come from those smaller creators, like I mentioned. So like an example would be a TikToker with about 700 followers, got 100,000 views and 12,000 likes on her first video. And I can speak to this as well. My very first video I posted on TikTok got like over 100,000 views. I had like 5 followers, So it really just is all about creating good content that resonates with an audience, right? And then, you want it to rank. It like now ranks in recommended TikTok searching. So like self-care haul or Target haul, like you can think about how you want to rank in some of that social SEO too, and we'll talk about that. Next, that's super important, is creating a standardized creative brief. If you're going to scale and have hundreds of people posting and thousands, even thousands, which we've done campaigns with thousands, you cannot be writing a creative brief for each influencer. You have to have a standard one that covers all the bases. And these are the sections that we recommend. So first, I just want to remind you, clear and simple guidelines. Keep it to 1 page or less. The shorter, the better. I always used to remind my clients, like, it's called brief for a reason. I can't tell you how many times a brand's like, here's my creative brief, and it's like 6 pages. It's like, and the more you put on there, the more it dilutes the message of what you actually need to get across. So just remember that. So simple, short, and clear equals the best results. And these are the buckets that we like to tell brands. And after doing, the hundreds of campaigns we've done, like thousands now at this point, these are the main buckets that you should be putting in your creative brief. First, about the brand, very brief background, like 1 to 3 sentences max, right? You also want to put the phonetic spelling of the brands. That's really important. So it's amazing how people can read the same thing and say it differently, or how brands have a very particular way they want something pronounced. Make sure you have the phonetic spelling in there. You want your unique selling point. Keep it under 100 characters. It should be simple. Like I said, if your unique selling point is multiple sentences long, it's not a unique selling point. Those are multiple points, right? You want to pick one point that you're trying to get across with the content that you're creating. Next is how to use the product. Step by steps, very simple step by steps, ones that like no one can mess up. Because if you want people using your product correctly, you need to be so particular. How do you want them to open the package? If there's any like specific things, sometimes skincare products, like you want to make sure they don't use it with another skincare product or things like that, very specific of like how do you actually want them to use the product. Then a section that's do's and don'ts. So bullets are your friend on creative briefs. Like, what do you want them to absolutely do, and what do you absolutely want them to do not do, right? The don'ts are probably even more important than the do's. Then content preferences. So do you prefer voiceovers, text overlays? Do you want them? Do you not? Profanity can be one as well, because some brands are okay with colorful language, some are not. So that's one piece. If you don't have a lot of content preferences, you can just take that section out if you want to give them free range. But if you do, then put those in. And then content inspo is really powerful, because if a creator can see what the type of content that you like, it's a lot easy for them to emulate it, right? And like do something similar. So putting other content inspo as well. So we obviously have a software that creates this creative brief for you and packages up all nicely, and we've optimized it over time. But these are the main sections of it that I wanted to share with you, that you can use our software to do it, or you can just do it yourself as well, but really keeping it concise, right? The next tactic is to get granular with your matchmaking. So you have your creative brief. Now you're going to be like, who do I want to target, right? So you don't want to just be like just because you're going at scale doesn't mean it can completely be just random. You need to have some targeting of understanding who your audience is and who you want using the product. Now with micros, typically the micro that you want to target is the person who's buying your products, because that's why the beauty of UGC is that people see themselves in the person who's posting, and they relate to that. So, if your demographic is, women of a certain age, 18 to 35, then those are probably the people that you want creating content. I think something interesting with even some of the male brands we work with is when I say like your audience is like who's purchasing your product. So sometimes even male products, like the person purchasing is actually women or the spouse of the person. So think about that too as well. Like who is that person that's actually purchasing your product? That's normally who you want creating content about the product. So you can target based on specific traits. So I like to say always create like build out your ideal persona, give them a name, think about what they like to do, think about their hobbies. Maybe you already have this in your company. If you don't, it's a really great exercise to really get in the head of that person and give them a name. I love when brands come to us and they're like, we have Susie and she's like our ideal customer, and they give us like a picture of her and everything, because I think it just humanizes the person and allows you to find the right creators. Like what creators do they follow, what hashtags are they following, and this is how you can help find the right creators to create your content. And then the more niche your creators are, the more relevant your content is. So like we worked with a brand that was targeting women with curly hair, right? And that audience, like, it's a very that first of all it's a very active and engaged audience. Like women with curly hair are following a lot of other women with curly hair, so they can learn how to like style their hair in different ways, because it's someone who actually relates to them, right? It's like if somebody I was following up someone with straight hair, then it's not going to relate to them. So we did a campaign where targeting just women with curly hair posting about the product. And it was so successful because that niche, and it really spoke to the audience and really brought out this amazing content that they used throughout their funnel. Next is re-engage with creators that produce your best content. I think this is something that is a big opportunity for a lot of brands. Is once you're doing content at scale, so you're getting 50 100 creators posting, you should be flagging your favorite creators and working with them again, right? If they created an awesome piece of content, you should have them create more pieces of content and create some longer term collaborations with them. So we do that also within our software, where you can like flag people for re-engagement. But it's also really easy if you're not at the point of using a software too, to do it on your own. Make sure you're flagging these people and create like this community of people that you want to work with over and over again. It's also really cool too, going back to how many touch points to convert a person. Their followers are going to see them posting multiple times. They're like, wow, they really do love this product. I'm going to finally purchase or convert. It's really a win-win for brands and creators, because they become more familiar with you, and their content becomes more valuable as a result. They really get to intimately know your product. And then it encourages that high value, always on influencer strategy. So, if this should not be a one and done piece. If you're creating a content engine, like this isn't always on, you're planning on an annual basis. You're understanding that you need a base level of content that you can use through your marketing funnel. The next tactic that we like to cover here is increasing your value exchange to encourage high quality content. So what is a value exchange? So a value exchange is what you're offering the creator in exchange for posting. So obviously that can be payment, it can be product and payment, it can be if your product's very expensive, maybe it's just the product itself. But at the end of the day, it's not just about product versus post and payment versus post. It's like how much are you asking for? So we created this little graph here that says like the smaller the ask, the less value you have to provide that creator, right? And the bigger the ask, the more value you need to provide that creator. So if you're thinking that you're going to like art direct a whole fully art direct this creator's content and give them all of these nitty gritty pieces, I mean, you're practically going to need to pay them a significant amount of money, because that's going to take them a ton of time and energy, right? Where if you are just like, hey, I have this whole palette of makeup, I'm going to ship it to you, you can post whatever you want, I'm not giving you any guidelines, like maybe you're going to get creators that will take that palette of makeup that's worth 50 $75, and they're going to make amazing content, right? But You didn't ask a lot of them. Now, if you went in there saying like, I need you to do this exact Halloween look with this thing and this, you're going to need to make sure you pay them or compensate them in some way other than probably just the product. So it's really like a scale. You want to make sure that it's a win-win on both points of like what you're offering them. Otherwise, you won't get creators to claim your product. And when you're doing content at scale, you can't be negotiating with every single creator, right? You have to be giving an offer that's good enough that enough of them are going to want to claim and work with you. So you just really got to think about that. So if you start noticing, man, I'm not getting creators like claiming my product or my offer, I'm not getting creators like excited about working with our brands, like what is it? There's a good chance that it's probably because your value exchange is not big enough, which will really impede your ability to actually hit at scale content, right? So just remember that too. So if you're trying to get 50, 100,000 people posting, you got to have a really good value exchange. And I have some examples here too, because I think that that's always helpful to know kind of what's a big ask versus a small ask. For example, like if you're asking someone to go in store, video something on the shelf, like cut a whole video about their whole journey into the store, that's a bigger ask. It takes them more time. So you need to really think about adding more value to your exchange. If you're asking them to film in-store content, create a recipe. Make sure you're giving them budget so that they can get recipe materials, right? Otherwise people aren't going to want to claim your product and work with you. And also, compensating them for their time and how much time it's going to take them. Something else that I think is just like an interesting thing to think about is like changing your dog's diet for 2 weeks. Like we've worked with dog food companies or even baby food companies, and like changing a full diet is a much bigger ask than like, for example, like with dogs, if you ask like, oh, promote our dog treat and show a cute video of them doing that versus like you're going to change your dog's diet, like that's a really big deal for a lot of people. So you're going to it's going to be harder, especially if you're not a well-known brand, to get creators excited about that unless you can give them enough value for kind of having to make that change in their dog's life, for example. Same with like skincare products. If you have to try an acne product for 2 weeks before you can see results, that's a lot of time, work, and people are very like sensitive about their skin and changing their habits, right? Versus if you were just asking them, hey, just post your nighttime routine, like that's a small ask, right? So here's some smaller asks, like take a picture of yourself holding the product, just show how you add this to your coffee in the morning versus creating a whole recipe, or give your dog this treat, or post a photo of your nightly routine. Like those are small asks. You still need to make sure the value is enough for that they're excited about that. But when you start getting into bigger asks, just remember that like you need to make sure that the value is that the creators are getting is enough to make them want to do these bigger asks of you. And we have done so many campaigns. We can also help you with that. If you want to talk to our team about like, what should you be offering creators? We have so many data points on what works and what doesn't, because we are doing it at such a scale that we can help you with that. And then the last piece in terms of this value exchange as well is that, 83% of influencers are willing to work in exchange for product if they love a brand. But that doesn't mean that, they like won't appreciate more value. Once again, like if you're an almond milk company, just because I ship you 10 gallons of almond milk, it's not really increasing the value, because how much almond milk can you drink before it even goes bad, for example? So you really got to think about your product, the value that your creators are getting, and making sure that it makes sense for them. And I know when I was on the creator side though, like if it was a brand that was like my dream brand that I loved, like I was so excited to do it for product. But if it was a brand I'd never heard of, I was like, you're going to have to convince me in other ways, either with compensation, gift cards, something to excite me to want to work with you, right? So just once again, put yourself in their shoes and really think about that. But this is a really important part of doing content at scale, is understanding to what your ask should be to get people excited and create good content. Because, the more value you're providing them, the more value they provide you. It's a value exchange at the end of the day. So next, in terms of sticking to the best practices of influencer marketing, so some do's here is do get the creator's permission prior to repurposing the content. So that should be in your agreement in the beginning, is so that they know that that's part of their agreement in creating the content. Because that if your whole point is creating a content engine, you shouldn't not have that baked in there already, but you want to make sure that that's upfront and they know that. Also, automate tasks like reporting, rights management, and matchmaking. Try to automate those as much as you can. So at the beginning, probably when you're starting to scale, you can use tools, spreadsheets or databases. There's also obviously platforms like ours, but trying to figure out where you can automate is going to save you a lot of time in terms of how you can scale that content engine. And then do tag the creators in posts to increase engagement for both parties. I see this a lot where brands will just repost creator content and they don't tag the creator. And although you have the right to do that, your reach will be higher if you tag the creator, and they will be happier and appreciate you more and probably also repost you again. So that's just a small thing that you can do, is just make sure to tag the creator, give them credit. I also feel like it's just the right thing to do in general. And you can do this wherever you repost them. You can do this on your website. You can link to them. You can do this on your newsletter. If you're sending out newsletters, like, you can give them credit. And it actually increases typically the engagement overall, because that creator is really excited and sometimes they'll reshare it themselves. Now, next is optimizing your content engine for social search. So we'll jump into that. And we are going to have a full webinar on this. So I'm going to do a little light overview. We're doing a deep dive into this next month. So that's going to be our next webinar, and we'll give you the link. Oh, wow. Thanks, Sam. There's the link to register for that next social search webinar, because I do think that this is the time. This is like the early days of Google. Like, brands that get on this early are going to see really great results. So the concept of TikTok and Instagram as Google for consumers isn't far-fetched. Like, it is here. So consumer searches on Amazon and Google are actually down from 2022 to 2023, and platforms like TikTok and Instagram are way up. So they're pulling search volume from the OG Amazon, Google search engines. So consumer searches on TikTok and Instagram, like I said, are up. You can see here. I mean, looks like Pinterest is flat, Facebook's up a little bit, but I think the most striking thing is that search engines, who have been like the end all be all for so long for marketers, are trending downward. And it makes sense. I mean, I've started using TikTok as a search, and it's incredible. I'd much rather get a bunch of real people talking about a product. Especially, I use it mostly for like answering questions about a product, right? So like, I was like looking up retinol the other day, and I was like, what cream should you use with retinol, and what should you do this? So I started searching on Google. It was not helpful. I went on TikTok. I got like so much great content of real people who have tested products, who showed their before and afters, who did all this different stuff. And I was able to make a purchase, and a much more educated purchase, I felt. So social media is really becoming the starting point for product research and discovery. Google actually came out saying that they noticed that TikTok and Instagram are really like stealing their lunch in a way. They said that 40% is what they believe of young consumers prefer social media to search engines. And that cross-platform search, so searching for Amazon products on TikTok and Instagram, is becoming a lot more just relevant and just happening a lot more, right? So like, instead of only searching on Amazon, people are actually going to look on Amazon finds on Instagram or on TikTok. So that hashtag you can see here with over 3 million views. There's tons and tons of content on those topics. Next is social search impacts brands' ability to generate leads and drive sales. So 61% of TikTok users actively shop and research products on the platform. So they are not just using this as an entertainment platform anymore. They are using this as a way to be like, wow, this is, I need to discover this new product category, or I need to pick which shampoo is best for me, or I need to pick what, like I'm vegan and I want to pick which vegan products are best for me, things like that. 71% of Gen Z say social media is where they most often discover new products. And 44% of consumers shop on Instagram weekly. So what does this mean for you as a brand? Is that you need to make sure your brand is showing up in the social search. Just like you used to really care if they show up on Google, and I guess still care if you show up on Google, but you need to really care if you're showing up on Instagram and TikTok. Because if you are the top response for like top skincare products for acne, then you are going to see sales from that, and that content is going to live on there for a long time and really help you. Like, that evergreen content will continue to drive sales for a long time. So as more shoppers turn to social media, brands really need to rank like they do on Google. So how do you do that, right? Which is what we're going to talk about. So first, TikTok is rolling out a Google Ads-esque content performance data for brands. So it's really interesting. Like, they're leaning into this. They're building out much more search features. They're having where you can actually search some keywords and see the popularity of that keyword, so that you can figure out if you want to search for it. So really reminds me of the early days of Google, which is why I think marketers really need to get on this. Instagram is introducing new ads in search results as well. So now when you search, they're actually popping ads into the search results because people want to come up in those searches. And then we're seeing more and more our own brands so rank on social search. So from an influencer perspective, like what content is ranking when people are searching? It's not ranking based on follower count. It's rating based on ranking based on relevant content to that user. So you want as much pieces of essentially hooks in the water out there so that you can make sure that you're ranking on certain search terms. Very similar to the SEO concept of writing blog content, if you're familiar with that on Google. So how your content engine supports social SEO. So like I said, hooks in the water. It's a numbers game. So high volumes of content feed the algorithm and increase your ranking potential. So like I said, everyone's search results are different, which is similar on Google, right? So if I were to search, best cleansers and you were to search best cleansers, facial cleansers, we would see different results based on what TikTok and Instagram know about us, right? But what's really cool is they're not doing it based on which content has the most loops. Actually, the first piece of content may only have a few thousand loops, but TikTok thinks it's most relevant to me. So how do you get your brand ranking in some of those searches is really just to consistently have people creating good content about you, right? So like we talked about earlier, brands can only do so much in-house. So a content engine outside of your in-house efforts is really necessary to do that. So even branded searches are dominated with content from creators. So you can see a few here, like if you type in Aquifer, like it is not Aquifer's Instagram, even though they have a lot of followers, it's not them popping up. It's actually creators posting about Aquifer. So like you want to make sure you have enough creators posting about you that that's what's happening when people search your brand. And if you haven't searched your brand on TikTok in a while or on Instagram, I recommend that you do and see what is coming up because you also might find some content that you are, like want to be part of that conversation. Because if it's a piece of content that's not great about your brand, adding yourself into that conversation and commenting and having that discussion can really change the way that that piece of content is perceived. So that's definitely something that you should be monitoring is what comes up when you search yours. And like I said, it is custom based on each account. So maybe have a few people at your company do it. But that's just a great way to start understanding how people are actually seeing your product in the wild. And then ranking in social search can happen relatively quickly, but also it can go away relatively quickly, which goes back to why it needs to like you need to consistently have people posting about your brands. So here's some tactics to optimize your social SEO. So first, research and brainstorm phrases that you want to rank for. So once again, very similar to our traditional SEO on platforms like Google. Think about the consumer and put yourself in their shoes and be like, what would I search for where our product would be the solution that they would want, right? So like if you were Aquifer, which is a like very thick cream type products like for your lips and your skin, maybe it's like you would think like how to treat dry skin, how to do you need to start searching some of those and seeing who's coming up around those phrases, right? Then ask creators to feature phrases like that in their content. You don't want to micromanage them, but what you can do is maybe in your creative brief, that one creative brief is all about how to combat dry skin in the winter or something. And that's like your campaign because that's what you want to be ranking for. So you can tell creators like, hey, post about this topic. It doesn't need to be like stuffing with keywords. TikTok and Instagram, they're smart. They just want to see like this is the topic area that is being posted about. You also want to use hashtags. So beauty brands leveraging TikTok hashtags actually earn 4 times the median industry engagement rate. So look at what hashtags accompany those keywords that you're trying to rank for. And make sure that's a requirement of the creators to post is to use those hashtags. Publish thumbnails that feature people versus just the product. Those tend to perform a little bit better, similar to YouTube thumbnails if you're familiar with optimizing those. And then post consistently to keep up with the algorithm and demand. Because like I said, you can rank relatively quickly, but it can also fall off because if more people create content before you do, then it's just a numbers game and a consistency game. Next, keywords and post descriptions. Both keywords and post descriptions tell the algorithm what your content is about. So it's very important that those match the content. Because if you start just stuffing with keywords and in your post description that like aren't really relevant to the content, you will never rank. Because what will happen is TikTok will show your content once and then somebody will watch it and be like, this is not what I actually wanted. And then it'll just derank it. So you really need to make sure that the content is aligned with also what those keywords are, right? So it's important that social captions are not blog posts. Don't try to stuff them with keywords. Just make it relevant to what it is. And then an observation here is that long tail phrases like 3 to 4 words are really popular on TikTok, which is also similar on Google as well. You're normally not searching like dog food. Like you're normally searching like healthy dog food, or you're searching like dog food without pesticide, or like, organic dog food or things like that. So you want like longer keywords. So not only does that get you the better quality people, but it also is easier to rank for because it is more descriptive. So next is optimizing your influencer content for social proof. So we talked about optimizing for SEO. So now we want to optimize it for social proof. And these are some of like the categories that we find work best for optimizing for social proof. So social proof is the concept of actually making sure that your audience is, or that when your audience is viewing content about your brand, that it makes them be like, oh wow, this proves that this brand has social proof. It has enough people posting about it that it brings that trust factor up. So focus on content formats from creators to help your audience make informed purchase decisions. How-tos, tutorials, reviews are all great. The more of these these posts that you have from a wide range of creators, the more potential people you can engage with. These also make really great for using in ad content as well. People love ad how-tos, tutorials, and reviews. Publish and republish your influencer content across the channels. We've talked about this exhaustively, but just as a reminder, making sure that you are getting the most mileage out of it, and using it in those ads as well. Not every piece of UGC is going to be great for an ad, but if you're creating a content engine, you will find that a percentage of them will make for great ads and work better than the in-house stuff that you've created before. So where can my influencer content go? So you have your allow listing, your white listing, also called partnership ads and spark ads. There's lots of terms for this concept of running ads with the creator's handle, depending on what platform you're on. Those are all essentially synonymous with the same type of concept. You can use it on product pages. You can repost it, content and positive reviews on TikTok and other channels. So that's a really cool way to use it as well. And then retail brands can even integrate influencer content into displays and end caps as well. Obviously, making sure you get the rights to do this, but that's also another way. So you can see Maybelline here doing like the TikTok maybe buy it section. And then to wrap up, I always love to give some examples of effective content engines in action. So I'm going to run through some like real examples of brands that we've worked with that have seen great results and used it for many of the categories that we've talked about. And then I'll open it up for some questions. So first is Curlsmith. So this is a brand targeting women with curly hair. It's actually the brand I referenced earlier in the call, but they really went hard with creating a very strong content engine because they wanted to drive retail sales. They wanted to be everywhere amongst women with curly hair. So they actually did a campaign where they got over 6,500 pieces of content, and all of the content too, they were having people mention that they could be found at Ulta and different retailers as well. So they actually saw this as part of their multi-channel strategy. They saw themselves even selling out in many of the retail accounts because they were doing it at such a great scale and volume. Another brand here that I want to mention is Swanson. So they're a supplement company. They created a content engine and worked with Statosphere, and they had over 1,000 pieces of content that they produced. And their main goal was actually to repurpose that content in their ads channel, because supplements is kind of a more dry, not as fun thing to create content about and create ads about, but the creators really brought it to life, and the influencers posted such great content that they were able to use and actually use in spark ads and whitelisting, and really combat that ad fatigue. And ad fatigue is the concept that like you can't just keep running the same ad with the same image all the time because people just get numb to it. So you need to constantly be changing it out. And different platforms have different recommendations for that, but you're normally only wanting to run one piece of creative for a couple weeks, maybe a little bit longer. And once you've exhausted that audience, you want to make sure that you're switching out your content as well. Marley's Monsters, so really cool eco-friendly alternative to paper towel company. So like material towel rolls or unpaper towel is what they called it. You created a content engine. They had over 200 pieces of content created thus far, really focusing on the eco-friendly consumer. And they saw that on TikTok especially, they were really able to find people that resonated with their product. And TikTok's algorithm is just amazing and showed it really to other people who resonated with that product as well. So they've seen some of the highest engagements in general because I think their product is in such a great category and really hits home with that target audience. Viore is a shampoo company that is eco-friendly shampoo in terms of it's a bar shampoo company, so it doesn't have any plastic. They uh, invest heavily in having a content engine as part of a big part of their marketing strategy. And so with over 700 pieces of content created, they've saw their social SEO really skyrocket. And now that's like one of their main acquisition channels that people say they find this brand through is from TikTok. And because they're searching on shampoo bars and they come up so frequently that this is actually becoming the discovery place or the main discovery place for this brand, which is super cool. And this is, like I said, doesn't happen overnight. This is like consistency over time. But when brands really invest in it, they can see really great long-term results. And that leads me perfectly into our next webinar, which is advanced strategies for social SEO. So if you like the social SEO, then please join this webinar because we're going to be doing like a really big deep dive next month into all the tactics, how to really build out that strategy. We have like a worksheet. We have all the different things that we're going to go through of how you can rank for your B2C brands on social search. So on Instagram and TikTok so that you can come up there. So learn what the social SEO is and how it's shaping the buyer's journey, gain social search strategies and ideas of how to help your products rank, and then get expert tactics for increasing your brand's social visibility faster, which is something I find really interesting. We have a few minutes left if there's any quick questions, but like I mentioned, this recording will be sent to you. And also, if you ever want to chat with our team and see if Statosphere is the right fit for creating your social content engine, click here and you can chat with one of our team members. And like I said, we'll get you the resources and we can even schedule a demo to show you how our platform works and how we're able to get those results. So we'd love to chat with you. But with that, are there any questions popping up as we wrap up? No. Cool. Well, it was really great. Oh, is there any sign of influencer fatigue? So I think that that's an interesting concept because the term influencer, just in my opinion, actually, you notice I go back and forth saying influencer and creator. They are interchangeable in the way that I use them because I just think the term influencer is a little overused. I do think it has a lot of baggage with it. I truly believe that anyone who can influence a buying decision is an influencer. So I don't think that's going anywhere. But I do think that there can be influencer fatigue in terms of maybe the bigger macro influencers that if they aren't careful about creating a feed that just does, you don't want it to feel transactional. And I think we've all seen influencers that promote a product that just doesn't fit their brand. And I think that that's where that kind of influencer fatigue can come from. And then that trust really goes down. But that's where I do really, why I believe so much in micro is because to me, micro is just like, they're my friends, they're people I relate to, you know, it's only a few thousand followers and like I just really trust them. So I think as long as the trust is there, then there won't be fatigue. I think for any influencers that get away and their audience doesn't trust them anymore, then it's not great. So that's why I have really felt like micros have always been the main way to go in that category. But that's a good question as well. Awesome. Well, as we wrap up, look out for, oh, wait, one more question just popped in. What performance metrics outside of audience analytics do you recommend brands review when considering partners? A 2% benchmark engagement rate sounds so outdated considering it does not include video views or video shares, which have become increasingly more significant. Yeah, that's a really, really great point. So the way that I look at it and the way that we look at it is we look at the engagement or metrics on a per post type, right? So if you're looking at somebody who you want to do Instagram feed posts for you, like static content, that's one requirement. If you're looking for somebody who wants to create Instagram reels, that's a different threshold that you should look for. So that's how we structure our system, is that we actually only approve creators for a specific post type. So if you're a creator that happens to meet the threshold on both Instagram static posts, Instagram reels posts, and TikTok, great, you'll be approved for all of them. But most likely you're only going to be approved for one if you hit those. You have to make sure you hit those thresholds. And then to get more deeply into those thresholds, we actually find that a sweet spot tends to be an average video views of about 2,000. Follower count, especially for TikTok and Reels, is essentially irrelevant. So we barely look at follower count because, like TikTok said, follower count does not determine engagement or reach anymore. Most of the people actually viewing TikToks are not even your followers. So it doesn't make sense to use, like, to your point, engagement rate if part of that metric is looking at dividing it by that follower count. So like I said, we really break it down, and the way I would look at it is break it down per post type. But yeah, for video content, if I find that 2,000 loops ends up being like a really great average video views, ends up being a really great indicator that they're creating good quality content, and that one will take off. Because like I said, it's just a numbers game. But it's super incredible when you find a creator who, she has 3,000 followers, average 2,000 loops, and then all of a sudden one hits 1 million views, right? Because she's been creating such great content, which we've had happen many times. Awesome. Cool. Well, it was really great spending this time with you all, and look out for our email with the recording. And as always, if you have any topics that you want us to cover specifically, please respond to that email. It goes to me. And we're always looking to make sure we're covering the topics that are most important to you all. So have a great rest of your day.